oldest World Cup classic on the calendar. It's one of the oldest classics indeed that has ever been. And the race today is over 260 plus kilometres. It's a long way. It's the longest out and home course, I think, that there's left in the world of cycling. I can't think of a single name, apart from Sean Kelly, who's recovering from his crash in Paris-Nice and racing down in Spain today, who's missing from this list of riders. It is a most impressionable list. Gianni Bugno, the World Cup holder, is back in racing now after illness. And alongside him, men that we will expect to see in the Tour de France, like Pedro Delgado, Miguel Indurain, Marino Lajarreta, three top Spanish riders. Why are the climbers here? Because this race in Belgium is full of hills. There are 10 climbs, and on the 10 climbs there are 2 new ones, one of them taking the riders over the highest point in Belgium. They say it really is very, very hard indeed. Coming towards the end of the race, there are 2 vicious little brutes called the Côte de la Redoute and the Côte des Forges, and the strong men who come to this point at the head of the pack can expect to lead out towards the finish down here in Liège. The riders themselves always want to do well in this classic because the man who wins it is usually one of the best riders in the world. Eddy Merckx, for example, has won this race on 5 previous occasions. That's why he's one of the great legends of world cycling. We can expect, too, another good performance from the Motorola team after Steve Bauer's fighting performance in Paris-Roubaix, where he finished 4th. Maybe he'll be up in the action too, or maybe he'll have to give his place to Phil Anderson, the Australian, who has ridden well in this classic before. Other riders are here too, like Greg LeMond of the United States, who's proved to the world he can win the Tour de France and the World Championship, but everybody still waits for him to win a classic race. This race could be the one. 26 of the world's finest cyclists line up for the start of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Among them, Stephen Roche, who's had a 2nd and a 3rd in this event, still awaits the win, and this year his form is good. Claude Coquillon, a professional who retires at the end of a 13-year career, has never won this race virtually in his own back garden. Claudio Chiappucci, this year winner of Milan-San Remo, last year's 2nd in the Tour de France. On a cold and chilly day, although the sun is out at the moment, snow is forecast as the field rolls away. The race distance 267 kilometres, and we can now join the action out on the course. So the race story so far: Thierry Bourguignon from the Toshiba team broke clear this morning at Houffalize with 62 kilometres of the race covered. So Thierry Bourguignon anticipating a long breakaway today, but he's been picked up now. We're 79 kilometres from the finish and we are in the town of Stavelot. And these graphics indicating the steepness of the next hill to come up. This is the Côte de Haute-Levée. Steepest gradient of 12% coming right at the start of the climb, a very narrow approach indeed. Well, Bourguignon had a lead of 7 minutes at one stage today, but he was picked up. His legs just cracked up in the end. The small group got to him first, but I must say that the main field very tenacious today. They've also been racing through some quite heavy sleet and some very cold rain. This is Benny van Brabant here from the SEFP team. It's a local professional team, and Van Brabant riding very strongly here at the front. This is the climb of the Côte de Haute-Levée. 193 kilometres covered when they go over the top of this climb. It's still the best part of an hour and 3/4 of racing to come. Well, Van Brabant is trying to keep the pace up here, but the whole field has come up alongside him. And that, on the far left, looks like Claudio Coquillon, who's trying to move to the front. He's been playing an active role, but so far, all of the heads of state in this race have been wandering around the big bunch together. And they're quite content at this stage to let Van Brabant set the pace. No one in the lead now. Everybody has been swept up. There's been a few attacks since the capture of Thierry Bourguignon, among them Maurizio Fondriest, Derek de Wolf, and the champion of the Soviet Union, Dmitry Konyshev. They've all been brought back, and Coquillon's settling in now. After his great 2nd place in Flèche-Wallonne the other day, the Belgians here have come out in force to hope that they will cheer home their national champion. This is the one race that Coquillion has tried but never won. I think his best chance, quite frankly, was when he was away with Stephen Roach back in 1987. And that was the last year that Moreno Argentine won this race. And Stephen Roach and Claude Coquillion spent so much time towards the end arguing with each other as to who was going to set the pace that Argentine came from absolutely nowhere and beat them both to the line. And look at this strong attack now on the Haute Levée by Coquillion. He's absolutely opening a gap here. This is exactly what the crowd were hoping to see, and Coquillion has faced some pressure this week. He's been at the headlines of every national paper here in Belgium, and they've all been saying, Claudie will not let us down. We rely on you, Claudie. They call him Crick the Lion. He turned professional back in 1979, and at that stage, I must say, he looked like a future winner of the Tour de France. And that's another thing. When he does retire this year, that'll be one of his sad memories, the fact he's never won a stage in the Tour. But look at this. Moreno Argentine has pedalled up alongside him, and didn't he make it look easy? Argentine winning the Flèche Wallonne for the second time earlier in the week. He's now searching for a fourth victory here in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. World champion in the United States in Colorado Springs back in 1986, Argentine. And Coquillion looks across, doesn't seem too concerned, almost as if he expected to see the Italian alongside him. And now the Italian is continuing what Coquillion has started here as we head up towards the top of the Haute Levée. The Ardennes. And on the back of the field here, Eric Van Lancker, last year's winner, has done a good ride to join this league group, which was started by Claude Coquillion and Moreno Argentine. And this group has now developed into quite a breakaway. 10 riders here. Here's a list of them. Apart from Van Lancker, you've got Raul Alcala. There he is. And Johan Bruneel from the Lotto team, who's settling in now. We're expecting a lot from him this season, especially in the Tour de France. Inaki Gaston from the class team from Spain. Miguel Indurain, he's been sick, but he's put this race down as one of the races he wants to do well in this year. Well, he's made a good start now, hasn't he? And Marino Lajarreta, Spanish leader of the Once team. There's the rider who started it all, champion of Belgium, Claude Coquillion. And this now is the big selection, I think, in this year's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. There is a group chasing behind, which includes Phil Anderson and Charlie Motte, and they're running at around 45 seconds to a minute back. Oh, well, there we are. There's confirmation. 1 minute and 5 seconds to the Anderson group. Setting the pace at the front now, Rolf Sorensen, the leader in the World Cup competition. This is round number 4 this year in the competition. Sorensen actually finished Paris-Roubaix last week, which was something he was aiming to do. He was outside the World Cup points, but it was his 4th attempt at that race, and he hadn't finished the previous 3 rides. 54 kilometres to go from the finish. We're entering Stoumont here. And this breakaway has come together after the climb of the Haute Levée. And the climbers beginning to enjoy themselves. Lajarreta, Alcala, there's Sorensen taking a break at the back. What a great start to the season that man is having. The Danish rider, having finished 2nd in Milan-San Remo, 3rd in the Tour de Flanders, and then didn't score in Paris-Roubaix last week, but now he's in the big breakaway here in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Little caption at the bottom there indicating there are still 4 of the 10 climbs to come. There's Inaki Gaston dropping back a little bit, but all of these riders still content to work together. From what I can see, none of them are acting as a passenger here. They're all going through, doing their work at the front, swapping around the pace. And news that Konishev, the champion of the Soviet Union, is still trying to catch up with this league group. Well, it won't be too long now before we head down to the next climb on the itinerary, which will be the Côte de l'Ours. Roach wearing number 51, perhaps the most famous number in professional cycling. It's the number that's been worn by more winners of the Tour de France than any other number. And Marino Lajarreta thinking of a good crack at the Tour of Spain this year when he hopes once more to go for the big triple, the Tour of Spain, the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France. Rides for the Spanish ONCE team, which by the way is a national institution for the blind in Spain, and it's the 7th biggest corporation in that country. And by the way, the masseur too on the ONCE team is also blind. Johan Bruneel, the rider who rode so well in the Tour de France last year, and is developing, despite his size, into a very, very good mountain climber. Just 5 kilometers to go now before we start the climb of the Lorsa. And that will take us up to around 225 kilometers once we top over. And this is Inaki Gaston here taking his shoe covers off, so the pace is certainly hotting up. It hasn't been a great day for weather, by the way, so far. The riders, in fact, have passed through, especially down by Bastogne. They've passed through some quite heavy snow flurries. It's been very, very cold indeed. Well, we have to say we're sorry for the microwave breakup, but again, it's due to the links to the helicopter from the motorbikes, but I'm sure you'll agree the action is worth it. They crossed over the Côte de Haussier, but although it was said to be the toughest climb in Belgium, there was no action on it at all because Thierry Bourguignon had control there, leading by the best part of 7 minutes. He's back in the field now. It seems as though the field had a great deal of respect for one another today. Heading on to the Lorsa now. And there is the full group that we're looking down upon. The main bunch, or what's left of the main bunch, is racing at around 1 minute back. Early spring in the Ardennes. The weather down in this section of Belgium is always beautiful, but you know the weather changes so quickly here in the hills. Cloud formation always affected by the dense forest areas. It is so different from the Flanders section of Belgium. And still that breakaway at 65 seconds. So although our cameras aren't dropping back to show you this chase at the moment, quite clearly it is a good one, because they're not slowing down at all in the chase. And I must say that you've got to look to this group at the front too, who don't seem to be panicking either. They're just keeping on the pressure. They know that this race will finally be decided in the last few climbs to come. Now heading up towards the village of Tognon, 51 kilometers covered to go rather. And isn't it funny in big races how the previous year's winner always seems to put in a very special effort? And that's what Van Lanker's had to do here today. He's on the far side of our picture there, riding behind Stephen Roach. Eric Van Lanker carrying the colours today of Panasonic. He had a great start to the season last year with Eddie Plankett winning the winning the Paris-Roubaix rather, in that millimetre finish from Steve Bauer, and then Van Lanker going on to win this race 1 year ago, and now he's in what appears to me to be the decision again. There's Johan Bruneel, turned professional back in 1987, didn't win a race then, but since then he's had 12 victories as a professional, and last year finished 17th in the Tour de France. Well, Claude Coquillon has made no secret about his desires to win this race, so he set himself up really as the man to knock down. While Paris-Roubaix was on television last week, Claude Coquillon was out for 5 hours on his bike training up by his home. He came back in, he watched the finish of Paris-Roubaix on television, and then he went back out behind the motorbike to continue his training. His preparation has been excellent for these two classics here in Belgium, what they used to call in fact the Ardennes weekend, because they used to be on Saturday and Sunday, Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne. Now they're splitting them apart. It's a great shame that the Flèche Wallonne is not part of the World Cup series. It's suffering from the fact it's in Belgium and it's too close to this classic race. But it is equally a noted race, and Crick, who's won that one before, finished second in it the other day, and now is hoping to go one better here. Everybody continuing to work well together. Climb still to come, the Côte de la Redoute. And we can look at the map here, you see the flashing going on at the top of our picture. That's where we are at the moment, at the Lorsa. We're now leaving the heart of the Ardennes around Trois Ponts. It's a magnificent area. If anybody wants to come over here and go just cycle touring, it's beautiful. This is the climb here, 12% gradient, you see, an average of 5.6%. Takes them up to a height of 415 metres. Van Lanker keeping his knees warm, I note, from the cold weather today. No sign of any passengers at all in this group. Lotto have the strength with 2 riders here like Arioste. That might prove decisive as this race comes to an end. They've got the opportunity to counter-attack. Miguel Indurain, who starts the season hampered a little bit by illness, and Stephen Roach looking good. And the same too could be said of Eric Van Lanker, Raul Alcala. The PDM team not had a great deal of success at all this year yet, and it's strange, but I feel they're missing Sean Kelly, out since Paris-Nice because of that broken collarbone, the second year in succession where he's broken his collarbone very early on. Last year it was in the Tour of Flanders, a silly fall on a sharp corner, and this year it was a crash in Paris-Nice. Now let's have a little bit look further down. This is the chase group here. Not surprisingly, it's the RMO riders who are having to do a lot of the work. This is Eric Carretou, former champion. We've got the Brazilian rider here too, trying to do a little bit of work. Mauro Ribeiro on the RMO team. And this is Dufaux, a new professional from Switzerland. Well, they're still in with a chance, but they're going to have to close this down very, very quickly. This is the group, in fact, which Phil Anderson is in, but I can't see Phil at a glance here. There's still quite a few powerful riders up in this group. Michel Dernisse, I can see, back down in the centre there for the Wyman colours. But the RMO are the big losers at the minute. They haven't got a man in that breakaway, and it's all down to them to chase it down. Some help from Helvetia La Suisse, because they're in the same boat. But the La Suisse team not quite as strong as RMO, and that there are a lot of teammates on the front too who want to keep this race nice and steady. Edwig van Hooijdonk to the right, he's missed the break as well. And number 44 pedalling along here is Rolf Goltz. Well, he's happy to keep it at this pace because his 2 men are right up there. Too many wanted. There's the gap. It's 1 minute to the group we're looking at the moment, 1 minute 35 back to the rest of the field. Time running out as we head down out of the valleys. We'll be on our way towards Remouchon very shortly. Very nice cafe on the corner there if you ever fancy a cup of tea when you're pedalling around the Ardennes. I don't suppose the riders will be stopping though. And a short stretch of cobblestones which will take them up onto the climb of La Redoute. Of Goltz, also a man that seems to be refining his form. Change of teams for him. Rode with the Buckler team last year, got off to a good start with them too when he finished second in Milan San Remo, but things have changed after that. He didn't really do well all season, and he fell out with team manager Jan Ross, who left him out of the Tour de France. Now Rolf has joined the Italian team. Arioste, there he is. And little Charlie Motte trying to keep in touch. Edwig van Hooijdonk wearing the same lucky long trousers which won him the Tour de Flanders the other week, although they weren't quite so lucky in Paris-Roubaix, but he rode well there too. And there's Anderson. So Phil Anderson hoping that this group will bring back that leading group, but there are so many star riders up there, you know. Stephen Hodge riding on the far side, the Australian. That is really a big mistake by this group. The strong men went clear using their strength. There's Maurizio Fondriest. He was extremely active early on. In fact, he countered the original breakaway by Thierry Bourguignon, and he brought Bourguignon to heel, but then fell back to the group and might well have been recovering, in fact, when Claudio Coquillon started applying the pressure. Claudio Chiappucci too, finding his ears a bit cold by the look of it. Lucia Pucci now, people were saying he was a lucky man last year in the Tour de France and wasn't an absolute worthy of that second place. But I feel he was. He rode an excellent race. He proved he wasn't going to give up that yellow jersey easily. Greg LeMond really had to race him for it towards the end, although in the end it became something of a formality. But this year, the win in Milan-San Remo, well, that's confirmed him now as a top cyclist. He also won, by the way, his first ever stage race this year, which sounds strange, doesn't it, when you've just finished second in the Tour de France. He's never actually won a stage race until this season. So his season going well, and they're slowly pulling them back to 38 seconds now. A lot of work being done here. This is Yvon Madio, brother of Marc, who last week won Paris-Roubaix. Sweeping along the road. Let's see what's going on a bit further down. Let's see where the leaders are. Still a lot of daylight between the two bunches. The oldest classic, and the roads are a lot nicer than they must have been in 1894 when Leon Hua was the winner from Belgium. That race then was 223 kilometres long, but we've come on a bit further since then now. This one is 267. And shouts there for Alcala. They spotted him in the breakaway. Inaki Gaston, former teammate of Sean Kelly. And the grand old man, his hair's as grey as mine is. Rino Laduretta. He rides a bike a bit better. Brunel and Indurain. What a lovely style Miguel Indurain has. Remember him on the mountains in the Pyrenees last year when he took on Greg LeMond for that finish at Luzardiden, and he sprinted away to the stage victory. Always rides well in the Pyrenees, Indurain. Head to head, Italy and Belgium, and the two riders who fought out Flèche Wallonne. Walker Kilian nearest the camera. Moreno Argentin, by the way, spent his winter in South Africa, and he gave the mechanic in the bicycle shop quite a shock in Cape Town when he rolled in with a pair of wheels and said would he true them, and he said, but excuse me, aren't you Moreno Argentin? He says, yes, I'm on holiday with my wife. And when the mechanic told the story to the cyclist who came in the next day, nobody would believe him that Argentin was actually there. They found him though, and they went training with him. But I must say that the professional riders have been saying all this spring that it's only a matter of time before Argentin wins a big race. He's absolutely flying, they keep saying, and he's proved that to us already because he won Flèche Wallonne so easily on that breakaway, lasting some 70 kilometres. Well, we're almost at the top of the Lorsa. We're back here with the Van Hooijdonk group now, which is still making progress. There's Derek de Wolf, warning of somebody on the inside, and the pace being set all of the time here by Yvon Madio, trying desperately to get Charlie Motte back into the action. Galt's not doing anything to help. He's just sitting there antagonising as best he can, hoping that nobody else wants to take up the pace. What a lonely race Liège-Bastogne-Liège is. Nobody ever gets the chance to say a few words to one another. You're no sooner over one of these hills. It's coming down, 29 seconds and 1:30 back to the main field. You're no sooner over one hill, you have a short descent, and you're on to the next one. The only consolation is one or two of the real steep ones over the years have been taken out because they're on roads too narrow now for modern day cycling. Because not only do you have to think of the increased field size, 200 starters allowed in races of this quality these days, but there's also the following cars who demand the right to get to their riders, and it's absolutely impossible on some of the roads of yesteryear. The first Liège-Bastogne-Liège, by the way, didn't start in Liège at all. It started in Spa, where the Flèche Wallonne starts from these days. It was Spa-Bastogne-Spa. It seems to have found now a permanent home at Liège. It's been to Liège-Bastogne-Verviers as well in the past. Bit of tree felling going on here. So we're going back up to this lead group. And there's a counter-attack coming from the field. They're feeling that they might well be in touch with the leaders now. Goltz is still hanging on in there in third place, but it's Charlie Motte who's got to the front and wants to try and finish this off and contact the leaders. Dirk de Wolf sitting behind him, then Rolf Goltz. And that's Sammy Morel's in fourth place, the other Lotto rider. Sammy Morel's had a couple of wins this year already. And a lot happier start to the season than last year. There he is. He was riding in the Tour of the Americas last year, crashed badly and broke his leg, and that delayed his continuance of the season. Van Hooijdonk is here as well, anxious to also try and bridge this gap. Buckler could do with a man up front. At least the pressure's off a little bit, because Jan Roos was demanding a classic win for the team this year, and he finally got it with the Tour de Flanders win by Van Hooijdonk. And there's the Buckler team bus there. I bet you Van Hooijdonk would like to be inside with the heater on right now too. 24 seconds, it's coming closer. Stephen Hodge, another Australian who settled into the big time. It's only a matter of time now before Stephen Hodge gets a real big victory. He's a very talented rider. And number 18 sitting in the back here is Gerard Rouvy, just off our camera at the moment. New team for Gerard this year, from coming over from the French teams, joining Helvetia La Suisse alongside Paul Cockley. And number 105 here is Laurent Jalabert. We just missed him, but Laurent Jalabert, there he is. He is also, well, everybody seems to agree, he is the best of the new crop of French riders. He can sprint and he can stay. In other words, he can attack on the flat. Let's go back up and have a look at the leading group. Still working away. It's looking a bit as though they might get picked up now, though. Van Lanker is doing a fair share of the work. Coquillon is never far away from the front. Raoul Alcala going through. Lacherette. And Rolf Sorensen. This is the break that the Ariosto boys wanted. They've got both of their riders in it. Lotto have got 2 riders in, so there's 2 big teams. They will not be doing anything behind in that chase group. And it's a breakaway that came away by the use of sheer force, because once Coquillon had attacked, it was only those who spotted it, could grit their teeth and get across quickly, have made it so far. Because it gained a minute very rapidly indeed. They haven't panicked, but having said that, now we've got a split forming here. We're heading down towards Remouchon. And there's a little split formed. Laduretta having to accelerate to get on the back of the line. Brunel slipping it up a gear now as the pace goes up to over 60 kilometres an hour. And our motorcyclist choosing the wrong line here. The rider's coming right over on him. So we may not get to know. And the gap is opening a little bit, look. 35 seconds now. So they've allowed it to come almost up to them, and somebody has started an attack at the front. For much of the way, this course is really a figure of 8, dropping right down to Houffalize, where he goes round in a circle and back into Houffalize, and then it goes off to Stavelot and Francorchamps, and then comes over the Lorsa, where we've just seen, and we're now heading back up more or less in a straight direction to Liège. And that breakaway is not as happy as it was. There's a lot of riders now trying to get clear. They're anxious to break it up. You may have felt it was just a little bit too big. 37 kilometres to go. We're located at Aze. But what it has managed to do, whoever put that attack in, has knocked up about 10 seconds in the game. And that might well serve to demoralise the chase behind. Three climbs still to come, so the next one will definitely be the Côte de la Redoute, then we'll go on to the Côte d'Ornay, and finally the Côte des Forges. And then it's all downhill to Liège. And this group is still not getting clear of that chase group, although the chase group behind is thinning out a little bit. Phil Anderson is still there. And there is the information, the next climb to come, the climb of La Redoute. It starts, in fact, as we just sneak into the edge of the town of Remouchon. It's a lovely little town. It nestles in the mountains, has an enormous viaduct that crosses it, carrying the main autoroute into the Ardennes and out to Liège. The town itself still largely untouched. Miguel Indurain there, turned professional back in 1985 after he won the Amateur National Championship of Spain years before that. And let's have a look back at the group. There's Charlie Motte, and he must be beginning now to be feeling a little bit frustrated because they're not getting any closer. We're back into Remouchon here, and that, to me, looks like Sorensen has gone clear of the lead group. It's a white jersey. It must be the one worn by the World Cup leader, Rolf Sorensen. So Sorensen has decided he wants to get a good look at La Redoute before anybody else, because there's Indurain looking across and wants some help. There's a reaction coming from the breakaway. Well, this is a perfect tactic now, because he's giving Moreno Argentin the chance to follow behind, and the others are bound to chase him. And that is going to soften them up for the climb of La Redoute. It's a brute of a climb. There's a massive crowd on there, by the way. They say that the motor car is actually stopping on the autoroute to look across, which obviously is a dangerous practice, but it's not uncommon in Belgium when there's a big classic race going close by. And there's Sorensen. He's sat up and he's watching who did all the work to get him, and it was Claude Quillion who caught him up. He's certainly feeling frisky this season, Rolf Sorensen. General regroupment then of the main field here. Well, the leading group anyway. So Rolf's father Jens waiting at the finishing line. He rode in the Olympic Games in 1960, by the way, Jens. And as I say, he's on crutches at the finish, waiting to see the arrival of his son. There he is. And Sorensen's ambition, it's always been his ambition, is to be the world's #1 rider. Well, this year he's certainly taken a giant stride forward, and there was a hint of it coming last year too, because he won Paris Tours last year and the Sicilian Week. These counter-attacks are taking effect. 35 kilometers to go. Hawaii, which is the big town, before we race along the valley, just a couple of kilometers then to Remouchon, and then we're on to La Redoute. It won't hold any fears for men like Eric Van Lancker there and Marina Lacharetta. They are climbers. Virtually every rider who has ambition in this race today has been out on the course this week, checking out the roads. The two new climbs didn't make a great deal of difference to the race, because everybody's afraid of the end of this stage, and that is the last couple of mountains towards the finish. And so the two new climbs, quite frankly, are just a little bit too far away for them to concern themselves with them. Just settling in, keeping the tempo going. After that little flurry of activity there, Sorensen seems to have controlled himself now. He's sitting in the group. There's Inaki Gaston. Spanish riders are doing well in this breakaway, aren't they? That's where we are, and that's where we're going, up towards the A's. Redoute, Ornay, Forges. 3 climbs left still to come. We're now on our way out of Hawaii, and we're on that road which takes us now down to Remouchon. And the breakaway group has fallen back a little bit. 55 seconds is what it is, so they're just about into the town centre of Hawaii at the moment. But we'll be making a left turn very shortly and bouncing over a stretch of cobblestones. Yesterday, which was a Saturday, there was a local town race here in Remouchon, and the start and finish line was on the cobblestones. Well, at least the riders here are only going to have to ride across them before they go around the back streets and climb La Redoute. It's a very narrow approach to La Redoute, but there's no other way to get onto it. So that's the way you've got to go. Quillion knows these roads so well. He's one of the few Walloons to become a top cyclist. He's lived and trained in the area for most of his life. Although he lives now over by the wall of Gerardsbergen. Sorry about a little bit of picture breakup. It's all to do with our technical link up to the helicopters and the motorbikes, which then put the signals down on the finishing line so we can all see the pictures, and occasionally buildings or bridges, and in that case it was that bridge over the road, breaks the link for us. Well, to look at these riders' faces, they all seem to be quite happy. They're certainly giving nothing away. Claude Coquillon there, riding this race for the last time. He must feel quite sad about that. But he has been a great cyclist. He's also a very nice person to know. He's a good friend of Sean Kelly's. There was a rumour once that they would ride on the same team, but it's never worked out. And he never seems to have a shave the day he rides. Some of the riders are superstitious about that. He always has this sort of grey shadow. Makes him look more aggressive, that must be it. But he had a lovely season last year, Claude Coquillon, riding one of his best Tours de France, for some years anyway. Winning the National Championship of Belgium and finishing 9th in the Tour, and this year he's made absolutely certain he's got the form to go out on a high note. And Stephen Roach deciding it's time to take off the old arm warmers. Well, Roach was out here on the course on Friday with his teammate Laurent Pillon. They both went over La Redoute together. Laurent Pillon, new professional, which Stephen has taken with him on the Belgian Tonton Tapis team this year. There's the World Cup situation as we come to this race. Rolf Sorensen with 42 points. Marc Madio, especially after his victory in Paris-Roubaix last week, in 2nd place. Edwin van Hooijdonk, he won the Tour of Flanders, his 3rd. Carlo Boemans of Belgium riding very, very well this year in 4th place. And Franco Ballerini is up into 5th place. That's the World Cup standings. The first 20 riders on the stage today will receive points towards that World Cup situation. And Sorensen is doing himself the world of good right now because he's in this winning breakaway. Well, if it is a winning breakaway, he's certainly in the leading breakaway anyway. And it looks to me as though Sorensen is going again at the front here, or is that still Roach out front? But whoever it is has gone clear. As we come into Remouchon. Well, if the riders turn right instead of left, they'll go back to a town they passed through a couple of hours ago called Trois Ponts. Well, I guess they'll go left this time and head back now towards Liège via probably the most feared climb of them all, the La Redoute. And this, in fact, is Rolf Sorensen, who's gone clear here. This is the 2nd time that Rolf has attacked, as we will now head down towards the left turn and a short stretch of cobblestones to take us up towards the climb. So Sorensen clearly deciding that it's his job now to soften this breakaway up in favour of Moreno Argentin, his team leader. This is the stretch of road that will take us down to the cobbles. In fact, we're on them already. All 2 parked cars, surprisingly, been allowed to stay on the route of Liège-Bastogne-Liège today. It's not usual to see that. But a nice little crowd here. This is a very nice holiday village in the height of summer. At this time of the year, everybody comes to witness the passing of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the gateway now to the last 3 climbs, and always the most crucial. Sorensen here has a lead of about 15 seconds. There is the Brute, 20% its maximum gradient, and it takes you up to only 292 metres, but what a way to go with an elevation of 161 metres. And Sorensen wants to see it first. He's not the world's best climber. In Milan-San Remo, he was in the lead with Claudio Chiappucci this year, and he found the Poggio climb was one too many, which comes just before the end. He was dropped by Claudio Chiappucci, who went on to win at the bottom of the hill. So Sorensen doing the next best thing today, that's getting out in front. If he does lose ground, at least he'll be still with the leaders when they go over the top. That's the theory. Now, as you go under the auto route here, you make a sharp right, and that's where the climb really starts. And there's the cars we'd heard about, and they certainly have stopped on the autoroute to look down at the race. And there's the right turn for Sorensen when he comes under the bridge. It's quite a good lead he's got too, isn't it, over that chase group. It's a good start to the climb for him. So that leaves 9 riders in that chase group. Sorensen here, now on the steep section of the climb. And the crowd, we understand, enormous on the climb. Check on progress by Rolf, 21 seconds. Very, very good lead at this point. The gradient not too bad here, but it won't ease up now for a couple of kilometres. In fact, it'll get steeper very shortly as he gets round the corner. This is back with the chase group. Inaki Gaston sitting at the back along with last year's winner, Eric van Lanker. Johan Bruneel, Lachrette in the yellow, Raul Alcala. And there is Argentin and Claude Quillion. They're both near the front and setting the rhythm along with Stephen Roach. Far side, Miguel Indurain. What a select group this is. Some of the world's great names, some of the riders we hope to see in action right at the front in this year's Tour de France. One name missing, of course, that of Greg LeMond. He really does seem to struggle to find the early season form that might finally win him the Classic, which he's never done. Until he does, of course, you can never compare his performances with that of Eddie Merckx. Well, this climb is so narrow that there's no cars allowed to be brought up it by the public. So these people here have had to walk right down from the village where we saw Sorensen coming over those cobblestones. It's a fair old walk. And you get some idea too of the height now, because way in the distance you can see the viaduct I was telling you about, which runs over the back of Remouchon. And that group riding very, very compactly indeed. And there's the crowd. Sorensen now getting up towards the top of the climb. It levels out a little bit. He's on the steep section there, but it levels out a little bit, then kicks again before he'll finally go under the finish banner at the top of the climb. That's the finish of the climb, by the way, not a race. And there's the indication on the right of our screen, a 20% gradient, or if you're English like I am, that makes it a climb of 1 in 5. And this is Argentin and Quillion now. It's interesting to see that Argentin himself is setting the pace in pursuit of his own teammate. Now, I suspect this was the plan for Sorensen to go away and Argentin to use his strength to counter the move. And it looks as though Quillion is going with him. And this is a superb piece of riding by Claude Quillion, because this is the one climb where you've got to start reducing the size of this breakaway. Quillion is not the world's greatest sprint finisher, and he'll want to shed quite a few of these riders if he can, and this is a powerful piece of riding by Claude Quillion. Sorensen still clear by about 20 seconds. Quillion towing along now, the one man he doesn't want, of course, Moreno Argentin, and this is going to put both Ariostia riders up front, and along with Claude Quillion, somebody else is trying to get across the gap there as well. Champion of Belgium really rising to the occasion today. He's saying his farewell to the Ardennes in the best possible manner. And this is further up. This is Rolf Sorensen in the lead. Still wondering why they haven't caught him yet. He's just kept the tempo going. Indurain has joined the other two. So this has split the breakaway now. Completely, in fact. 4 of the riders have gone forward. We've got 3 of them here. Sorensen is up ahead. This is the end of the steep part of the climb. We go round this bend, and then there's a chance to settle in a little bit. Snip it up to a little higher gear. There we are. Confirmation of the group chasing for Quillion, Argentin, Indurain. And a look down the climb. There are the 4 chasers. So there are 2. There they are, 2. There's 2 riders dropped off from the back of the remaining 6. Stephen Roach is in that chase group, so too is Eric van Lanker, I saw. And the crowd appreciating the good, honest effort here by the 3 leaders. Just ahead there, you can see Rolf Sorensen So they're going to catch him exactly where I would have thought he would have planned to have been caught, right on the top of the climb with the effort over. A chance to recover, because we're off to a sharp right turn down some narrow roads, very narrow roads in fact, and a short descent before we climb the Côte d'Ornay. Plenty of time to get a few deep breaths in. It's interesting to see now that these four riders have got clear. Stephen Roach will be kicking himself at missing this. There is Sorensen, and they're coming right up alongside him. He won't be too unhappy. I don't think Rolf attacked at that point to think of winning the race. I think he attacked because he wanted to make sure he could climb over the top of the ladder dute, at least with the leaders, and that's exactly what's happened. Look, he's under the top of the banner there, which is at the top of the hill. He's now rejoined by three more of the breakaway. Indurain is the first to him, followed by Cordy, and then Moreno. And there we are, the flags of the nations: Denmark, Italy, Belgium and Spain. We could look down the road and see what's happened. They've opened a reasonable gap, but it's not over yet by any manner of means. That's about 10-12 seconds. I wouldn't think it's much more than that. Well, I can see Stephen Roach and I can see Eric Van Lanker down there. Oh dear me, the motorbike rather spoiling the chase here. He's getting far too close. It's always a problem. And this is the narrow stretch of road I was telling you about. Just 27 kilometres now to go. Rouvy is where we are. Really, there's no such place of note. There's just these couple of farmsteads, and then we're out again, back in the country, which is where the leaders are at the moment. And they're straight back into the stride here. And Sorensen is looking very, very strong today. This has been one of his finest rides, and he's pulled off one or two in the last 12 months racing. Argentine, 2 climbs still to come, Luck, and 2 super climbs. Well, the Côte d'Ornay is not a great climb. It's a main road climb, but time is running out for Coquillon. He really will need to be away before the finish, I feel. Otherwise, the advantage is bound to swing across to Argentine, or even Sorensen if he gets his chance. And let's not forget Indurain. I think he'll have to attack too. It was his teammate last year who attacked on the Côte des Forges, Pedro Delgado. He got away too, but they brought him back before the finish. There's Rolf. Started off as a pro when he was only 20 years of age, Rolf Sorensen. He finished 9th in Milan San Remo in 1986, but he never won a race at all that year. Stephen Roach, Marina Laggeretta here, so this is the chase group now. Laggeretta, Roach, Van Lanker. And look, they're nearly on. They're very, very close indeed now. And Roach is driving the train here. There could be a regroupment here of at least 4 of them. Alcala is the other one. And so that means that Brunel and Naki Gaston have been shed on the climb of La Redoute, and as far as we know are out of the hunt now. It's a very sharp right-hand bend, this one. Well, they made it, and then they'll run out onto the main road. For a moment or two, they'll have a good road with a strong descent down to the start of the climb of the Côte d'Ornay. So, Alcala showing us he's got some good form, so too Stephen Roach. Van Lanker putting up a determined defence of his championship, which he won in the A's last year. We're back up with the leaders now, and they seem very cool indeed. This is Argentine taking the last bite of the day and washing it down with a drink before the finish. 25 kilometres to go. Claude Coquillon now set to leave the Ardennes on a high note. This has been a very, very good race, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. You can't fool the hills, and you've got to have the strength if you want to take part at the front of the race. There's the chase group, and there's the official gap of 15 seconds. So close. They're obviously both riding in 2 groups of 4 at virtually the same speed. Roach is doing a lot of work down there, so too is Van Lanker. And if only they could just close that gap. Sprimont is where we are. 24 kilometres from the finish. Miguel Indurain here sitting at the back. Now I wonder what he'll try Indurain, because he's been the quiet man of this break. He was the last one to get across to it. He also is not a fine finisher, so he'll need to break clear, and time is running out. Looks like the last assault will have to come on the Côte des Forges. Stan Ocker will be watching over them in what is a magnificent memorial to the great Belgian cyclist of the 50s. And we're 1.3 kilometres before the next climb. Indurain was supposedly to be the man of the early season until he took ill. Pedro Delgado, team leader, wanting a quiet start to the season. Hopefully so he can have a more serious crack at the Tour de France. Of course, he always upsets the Spanish people when he doesn't ride his native Tour of Spain, which he's not going to do this year. There's the next climb, takes us up to 280 metres. It's a main road climb, we're on it now. Very, very wide road. And it is perfectly straight, so you can always see the top. And look at this, Coquillon setting the pace, keeping that rhythm going. He's been a marvellous mountain climber over the years. When he came to the Tour de France, for a while he was rivaling the other climber from the Belgian countryside, Lucien Van Impe, 6 times winner of the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France. And Crick looking down, he must have seen that chase coming up surely on this long straight climb. But they're just keeping the tempo going. The attitude seems to be the others can catch us if they can. Argentin setting the pace again, so and Crick is going to launch an attack. He's gone late on the climb, but Sorensen and Argentin are both straight onto him. Well, Crick has kicked hard there, but Argentin has come rather arrogantly up alongside him again. His face hasn't even altered in expression. Now that's the sort of thing that Eddie Merckx would have done, I have to say. He would have just come up on his rivals like that and said, "Are you serious?" And that's the way Argentin has countered that move. And Crick keeping the rhythm on, but he has been countered by Argentin and the other two. Sorensen was watching very alertly as well, because he went almost at the same time as Crick did. And so they resume the rhythm of working it out together once more. Sorensen following now the wheel of his team captain. Sooner or later they're going to have to make a decision here to see which one might be thinking of the victory, because there isn't much time left. I think Miguel Indurain will be feeling very pleased with his performance today too. This is back in the chase group. Raul Alcala doesn't seem to have done too much work in this group since he came across, because each time we rejoin the group, Raul is sitting at the back there. So too Lajaretta. These two at the front seem to be doing most of the work. Lanka and Stephen. It's 13 seconds. It's been an awful lot of work just to nip off 2 seconds, hasn't it? Lajaretta going through now also. It's still possible because they're over the top of the Ornay. We have a little bit of a drop, then we swing right and a steady little drag, and then we'll start the last climb, which is the Côte des Forges. It is not a nice climb. It is not a main road climb, by the way, but the nice thing is the riders know it's the last one of the 10. It's 2.1 kilometers long, by the way, and it takes us up to the 253 kilometers point, which will mean once at the top, 14 kilometers remain, and there's the gap. You can see them and they can't reach them. Well, it's been a long time since we've seen a good hare and hounds pursuit like this. 3.3 kilometers to the Forge. And still Coquillon will not give up here. He's trying desperately now, and he must be having to think exactly how he's going to outmaneuver this lot. 15 seconds. They've lost the 2 seconds they gained. 1 minute 38 back to the Motte-Anderson group. So they're out of it now, I'm afraid. That's been a good chase too, because they've never conceded to this breakaway at all. The pressure's quite clearly stayed on. I don't know how many's left back in that group, but I would think there must be a lot of riders now shed out of it. There's the sharp right-hand turn, which will take the riders on Little Link Road across to the parallel main road, which will carry the race up the Côte des Forges. The Côte des Forges, by the way, is a very early climb in the Flèche Wallonne. It comes after just a few kilometres, and therefore it doesn't really feature in that race at all. But in this race, it's the very last climb, and it always features. Stephen Roche determined to try and finish this off. He's doing a lot of work in this breakaway. 19 kilometres to go to the finish now. Dolenbreu is the town we're passing through, or the housing area at least. There's Van Lancker, who seems willing to, and Lachalette is working much better now as well. These are the 4 leaders. Each one of them are willing to keep up the pace. There's nobody actually shirking his duty here in this breakaway. It's quite clearly the 4 strong men have established at the front. It's a question of whether they can hold off that determined effort from Roche and co. The 77th time that Liège-Bastogne-Liège has been held, and the weather at least is staying quite kind towards the finish for us. 16 seconds. It looks as though we may have now witnessed the cracking of that Roche group. They came very close, so close they must have felt they could reach out, because 13 seconds on a climb like Ornay was not far at all. But now it's dropped back to 16 seconds and they're on the flat roads. They're also out of sight here for a while, and that makes it even harder. The Côte des Forges will give us all of the answers, because if this group is still clear by 15 seconds at the top of the Forge, then I'm sure it will fight out the finish. Moreno Argentin has all too often showed us the great sprint finish he has. He knows if these 4 come down together, it must be swinging in his favour. He's the hot favourite. That's where we are now, heading up towards the final climb of this year's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Climb number 10. And the PDM team manager, Jan Gispers, up alongside Raúl Alcalá. And I wonder if he said to Raúl, look, just make a big effort and get across to that gap. You've nothing to lose. There's been no shortage of firepower there from Stephen Roche. And you saw that gap open. Raúl just let Roche go in. And now Walter Plankert having a word too with Eric Van Lancker. We're on the Forge now for the leaders, and there's a lovely crowd here enjoying the climb. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see the actual monument of Stan Ockels because of the crowd. Takes us up to a height of 301 metres. A big crowd here. They've all come out to see the kill, I suspect. Well, it's a pity that we won't see the memorial to Stan Ockels because of the crowd, but they're over. The memorial is over on the far right by the finishing line. But this is the last chance now for Coquillon. He's setting the pace too. But he must know that setting the pace is going to be all that Argentine wants. He'll sit around there behind him. In fact, he's riding alongside him as if to discourage any thought of attack. Indurain also riding close too. And the weak link appearing to be Sorensen, but having no problems sitting there at the back of the four. Indurain pedalling a visibly lower gear than the other two. This is one of the sharp bends here as they start the climb up towards the summit now. It's about 1 kilometre from the top here. So no sign of an attack coming. So it looks as though Guillaume has felt obliged to allow this race to come down to a sprint finish. His big attack coming on the Côte de la Redoute and fail there. Now there is the chase group. It's a long way back now actually, because this is quite a steady drag, and I would say around 18 seconds that gap. 4 of them still together, and Indurain dictating the pace now. Sorensen looking good once more. This has been one of Ralph's best rides, I would say. Rolf Sorensen's best ride I've seen. He's riding with such great confidence after that wonderful finish to the season last year. And just look at this too, it's even causing a little bit of pain up here. So Sorensen stretching, and Coquillon marks him very, very quickly indeed. Taps out the rhythm alongside him. And the face on Argentine really looks as though he could play a game of poker. And another big crowd. Well, it wasn't possible for this crowd to transfer from La Redoute. That so often happens in Paris-Roubaix, where the crowd see the race go by and race across little tracks to find another section where the race is. But you can't do that so easily here at this stage of the race. So this has been an excellent day for the public watching the race. It's a tremendous atmosphere in Belgium, cycle racing as popular as ever, although the crowd always bemoaning the fact that they can't find a replacement for Eddy Merckx. There's a period of some 8 or 9 years when Eddy Merckx was winning everything that they really did enjoy following the sport. And these 4 riders almost at the top now. The gap, if anything, has slightly widened behind. So we're looking now at the 4 riders who are going to fight out the finish of the 77th Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And Rolf Sorensen, the World Cup leader, is in a tremendous position now to go towards the Amstel Gold Race with a big lead in this competition. And after the Amstel Gold Race, you then go into the big tours, which of course are part of the World Cup. And then the World Cup is resumed with the Wincanton Classic in England. So Coquillon continues to look over his shoulder, a sign of a man who now feels he's going to have to take on these riders in the sprint, and let's hope he feels inspired. He's got all the reason to do well. The last time he'll come over the Côte des Forges in anger. Rory Coquillon retiring at the end of this year after 13 years as a professional. He'll be missed in the big peloton, just like Sean Kelly will, his mate, when he retires shortly. Over the top of the Côte des Forges, and look to me there as though Rolf Sorensen was feeling quite pleased about that. Now, what are the 2 Ariostia boys going to do? This is the second group here. Van Lancker still riding well on Lacheretta. Raoul and Stephen Roche. 14 kilometres, Beauvais for the chase, which is also on the top of the Côte now. Well, Van Lancker must feel a little bit frustrated. He hasn't actually been able to have a shot at winning this race again. He was right in the lead group. He paid the price on the climb of the La Redoute. These riders just couldn't raise their effort to the sprinting powers that those other 2 went up at it. And didn't they go up it too, Argentine and Claude Coquillon. But they recovered and then just couldn't quite find the extra energy needed to close down the gap. The final drink for Coquillon, the champion of Belgium, who's flown the flag today extremely well. There's nowhere left on this course now for Crick to attack. He's going to have to go down to the finish because Argentine will mark him for sure. And there must be some concern about Miguel Indurain. The riders in this breakaway will have been constantly trying to test one another, so I presume that each rider knows the strength of the other at this point in the race. The question is just what has Miguel Indurain got? He put 2 races down on his programme this year that he wanted to ride well in, Milan-San Remo and the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He couldn't ride well in Milan-San Remo, he wasn't feeling at all well, but now he's come to Liège-Bastogne-Liège here, and he's put in a great ride. He's read all of the moves correctly. This breakaway forming, don't forget, a long time ago now, back on the Haute Levée. And of the original 10, we're down to just 4. And somebody's gone from the group, and I think it's Raul Alcala. Well, Raul has sat at the back, he's not been doing much work, and now he's trying to cross the gap on his own. But it doesn't quite look as though he's firing too well, and in fact it's Stephen Roach who's bringing him back. Now, if only Raul had put some effort into the chase, you know, I have a feeling these 4 would have come back to the 4 out in front, because they were holding them for so long. But it's all too late now. Alcala's back in that chase group of 4. And we're heading on down towards the finish in Liège, the sharp right turn at the bottom of this road, and then we're heading towards the quay and the finish line. Coquillon is going to have to sharpen his sprint now and take on these 3. Indurain, he might well try and attack before the finish, Miguel, because I don't think he'll have any confidence at all in the sprint. I'm not too sure where he can attack now, because we've only got this flat run into the finish. The finish is actually about 200 metres from where we actually started this morning. We've gone completely around the Ardennes. And 23 seconds and 2 minutes, look, over 2 minutes now back to Phil Anderson's group. Roach group of 23 seconds. They won't be coming back today. The next time they'll see these 3 will be when they look up to the finishing podium. It's only a question of which one will be standing on it. And I can tell you that the whole of Belgium, watching these television pictures, are just standing on the edge of their seats here. They just want, they're willing Coquillon now to win this race. But whichever way it goes, these last couple of races he's had in the Ardennes have been brilliant for him. He rode excellent, so well in the Flèche Wallonne, but he met a man there that was simply too good, Moreno Argentin. He broke away 70 kilometres from the finish. He fell off just round one of the corners on a very wet surface going downhill, and he must have only been leading at the time he fell by about 20 seconds, but he was up so quickly they never even realised he'd fallen off, and he went away again, and of course he won. Now Coquillon will be thinking of that, wondering just what he can do to beat Argentine at the finish today. Twice the Italian champion, by the way, and of course the world champion back in 1986, as I said earlier. He rode the Tour de France last year, but after winning a stage he also crashed out. And that ruined really his chance of the World Cup, which was won by his team, well, by his countryman anyway, Gianni Bunny. Everybody now is watching one another at the same time as trying to keep the pace respectable, because they don't want that Roach group to come back. And certainly Crick will remember now the last time he was involved in a chase in a leading group was with Stephen Roach in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and it was Argentine who came back because they started talking to each other about who was going to do the work to the finish. And as a result, of course, Argentine came and went and won the race. And this race still being denied Claude Coquillon. finished second in 1986, 1984 or 5 he finished second, and he's also finished third, but he's never won it. The road shortly now will end in the countryside and will be into the outskirts of Liège. So we're almost at the finish, approaching now the 10-kilometer point. All 10 coats, little hills around the Ardennes are now behind the race for another year. And it's been a good race too. Quite a long descent this. It calls for a little bit of skill because you can get up to speeds of 90 kilometers an hour down this stretch of road. It's a good, wide, very smooth surface descent. You can turn the heavy gears, and once you're off this hill, you're going to be into the finish. Still pedaling along at around 45, 50 kilometers an hour or more. Sorensen looking very well. In fact, he's sort of saying to Coquillon, come on through, 7 kilometers to go. Finished 8th in the World Championship, Sorensen, back in 1987. The same year he finished second in his own national tour, the Tour of Denmark. But his best win as a new professional really was Tirreno Adriatico, this race in Italy in the early part of the spring in March. And he's done that in 1987. He's turning out to be quite a rider for the classics because his first crack at Liège-Bastogne-Liège he finished 8th. And he was 4th in the Tour of Flanders. And he won the first big classic came his way when he won Paris Tours at the end of last season. A big sprint finish. Phil Anderson was involved in that sprint finish. But this year he's continued the form. 2nd Milan-San Remo, 3rd in the Tour of Flanders. Miguel Indurain sitting at the back here. He won his World Cup race last year too. The San Sebastian Classic, which is a very nice race in northern Spain. On a big circuit, and it was terrifically hot weather then, and it was at that time too. I seem to recall Indurain was away with Marino Lajarreta. He got rid of Lajarreta, and right now he's done the same again, hasn't he? Because Lajarreta's in that chase group behind. Just 5 kilometers left to go now of the 264. There's no doubt now that the elastic has snapped in that chase group. We're not seeing too much of them. Ever since Raul Alcala put in that spurt to break clear and has gone back into the group, it does look as though they've lost a little bit of their drive. I know that Stephen Roach will be quite upset about that because at least he was true to his word when he said he would be in on the decision. He was certainly there. He could have done something on that Adout if he'd been in the right position. It could have been. So often happens on a narrow road, you're trapped behind a rider who allows a gap to open, and when you try to go around that rider you find it's too late. The gap is opened just a little bit too big. Sharp right hand turn now. Now we're on the run in towards the finish in Liège. Riders know it well. It's only been the last 2 years that we've come down to this finish here. The reason being we used to finish right down in the centre of Liège, but it was not a good finish. In fact, it was rather a dangerous finish. And the riders are much happier with the organisation over these last couple of years, which has brought the race a little bit out of the town, but that doesn't stop the people coming out to watch the finish. It's on the opposite bank of the River Meuse now. It's just down the road, becomes the River Maas, it goes into Holland. and Maastricht. That's the venue for next week's Amstel Gold Race, which finishes in Maastricht for the first time. Well, it's unusual to see a breakaway becoming decisive without a Dutch rider in it, but that's the way it is today. And now the attacks are starting. And surprisingly, it's come from Moreno Argentin, who hasn't left it till the sprint. He's still about 1.2 kilometres from the line here. And Argentin has gone, and it is Criquillon immediately onto him. Well, that's not surprising, because Crick is marking Argentin everywhere he goes, and it looks like it's been a dummy. And now the 1-2 for the Ariostia, that's to be expected. And look at this. Well, to me, Sorensen had it there. There was no reaction from Crick at all. And Sorensen just went and sat up as soon as Indurain had his wheel. And it's put now the team leader of the Ariostia, who's loosening off his left leg there, at the back of the group. Now they'll have to be careful here. If they start slowing down, then the chase group with Roach and Co will be on them. It's still around 20 seconds, that gap. And it's still a fair way to go to the finish too. Well, the one man I expected to attack didn't do so, Miguel Indurain. Instead, it's been Argentin, followed by Sorensen. And Criquillon must feel as though the whole world is up against him right now. He doesn't know which way to look. He wants to know where Argentin is. They'll do well to keep an eye out behind them too, because the group behind is closing in. Briefly out of our sight as they go under this underpass. And then they'll be back into our sight and lining up for the finish. Still no sign of the chase group there from our helicopter, and 4 riders very much back together. Criquillon, the far right of the road now, almost toying with them, tempting them to come and get him. Then he starts to wind it up, and immediately Argentin follows him. Indurain looks for the wheel and finds it. Sorensen struggles a little bit and stays at the back. And Criquillon shrugs his shoulders. No, that was Argentin, and now it is Sorensen. Sorensen then goes down the right of the road now, and they've let him go. Sorensen has gone. It's left to Indurain to chase him now because of the rivalry between these two at the back. And Sorensen has gone now and could well be taking this. Indurain is about to catch him. So 2 riders, and again he sat up. So again he said it's almost as if he is riding this race for Argentin and doesn't want to go himself, because Criquillon seems to be content to mark only Argentin. And they're watching, because they're coming, believe me, they're coming. Well, as they approach the finish now, this is still very much anybody's race. But they're about 12 to 15 seconds behind, no more than that, and Criquillon is doing well to be concerned. Argentin preparing for the final burst for the line. Indurain has been given the front now. Sorensen just tapping over there, keeping the pace at least a little respectable. They're underneath the 1 kilometre kite to go there. It's a long road this, it's an excellent finish, but it really is a road that must be judged to perfection. And Argentin again has got the position he wants at the back, but he can keep an eye on every one of them. Crick is just ahead. It does seem as though Sorensen is almost willing Argentin to win this race. Twice he's attacked, and twice, to me, he's had the break, but he's never pursued it. Heading up towards the finish now. And you see the official car has gone through, and he wants to pull out everybody behind. There they are, kicking them all out, because the group now is almost on their back wheel. It's about 10 seconds, the gap between these 4 and the Roach group. So the chase, after all these kilometres, is now coming down to almost 8 men. Last little climb in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Van Lancker was alone when he came up that climb, 1 year ago. Now he's in the group behind, because once they flick onto the road here, they'll see the finishing line. Sorensen in the lead, and it's Sorensen who's going to lead out now. Crick is going in the centre, and Argentin to our left is now giving everything he's got here. Indurain is out of it, but it looks like Argentin is going to take on Claudio Coquillon. This is an inspired sprint by Coquillon, but it's not good enough. Moreno Argentin, and a salute there too from his teammate Rolf Sorensen, and a congratulatory pat on the back from Claudio Coquillon. The same 1-2 that we had just a couple of days ago, and Moreno Argentin delighted. But what a superb ride by the champion of Belgium in his final Liège-Bastogne-Liège. You have to feel sorry for Claude Coquillon today. They're the two boys who did it just right. Stephen Roach is in now. 10 seconds was the final gap for Stephen Roach, and he came in 8th place.
That was a terrifically hard chase just after ladder dude, wasn't it?
If some of the guys had maybe believed more in their chances, maybe we would have been able to get back.
Yeah.
But I don't think the lads really believe we could get.
Are we seeing the stars of the form of 87?
I think it's. I can finish 8 today, I think. In 81, my first year pro, finished 8 as well. Maybe we have another 10 years to go, yes.
The second generation of Stephen Roach.
Well done. Second start.
Stephen Roach, what a nice man he is. And there's Moreno Argentin, who has become one of the champions of the Ardennes over the years now. This is his 4th Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And Stephen Roach, well, he'll be back again later this season, I would suspect. And Argentin now joining Eddie Merckx and Stan Ockers and Ferdy Kubler as the man to do the double. Back in the hotel, Pedro Delgado, all ready to go back to Spain, and happy with the form. Phil Anderson, who was chasing at just around a minute for most of the race.
You know, just didn't have the legs today, you know. You know, it's pretty that, yeah, maybe if I had some other guys there, you know, might have been able to do it a little better. You know, I had to do a bit of work myself.
So this has been a great Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and it has found an exceptional winner in Moreno Argentin, who finishes just ahead of Claude Coquillon and Rolf Sorensen.
Disappointed now, but because we won the race, there's always a little, you always say, maybe I could have won, you know, but the team won, that's very important, and a fellow like Argentin, which is a guy who you can trust, and he will always give it back to you in another time. Now I'm leading the World Cup, and he's going to help me when the problem is going to come.
Claude Coquillon can leave the Ardennes with his head held high. 2 second places, both to the same man, and what a superman that Moreno Argentin turned out to be this year. Unbeatable was the word, and Claude Coquillon will have to think about that for the career which ends at the end of this season. Here's the sprint again. Miguel Indurain already out of it, and hitting the front, Moreno Argentin. Claudio Coquillon really did try, but he was still half a length to the worst. Salute too from Rolf Sorensen, who keeps his lead and increases his lead in the World Cup competition. So, confirmation of the result: Moreno Argentin, the 267 kilometres in 7 hours 15 minutes. Second, Claudio Coquillon. Third was Rolf Sorensen. Fourth, Miguel Indurain. Fifth, Eric van Lancker. And sixth, Raoul Alcala. So, from the Ardennes, and until the next time we meet, it's goodbye. so the riders in the 265.5 kilometres, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, now making ready for a long day in the Belgian Ardennes. And this the 84th running of the oldest classic on the calendar, La Doyenne of all of the single-day races, and it's the 4th round in the World Cup as well. And this will be the finishing line for the lucky people who come home in the town of Ons, the Rue Jean Jaurès, after some 7 hours in the saddle. Joining me in the commentary box, Paul Sherwin as ever. And Paul, after the Flèche Wallonne, this we expect to be possibly a good defence by Michele Bartoli, or are we going to see Bo Hamburger bounce up and do it again?
Well, I think all of Belgium would like to see Frank van den Broek put in a great performance here, because second in Flèche Wallonne just a couple of days ago shows that he's doing things just right after his win in Wevelgem, and when it comes down to Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he feels very confident.
The race making its start in the Place Saint-Lambert in Liège. And the riders coming down to the start line. Before we go and join the action, here's Laurent Jalabert signing in. Only 19th in the Flèche Wallonne, and I don't think his form is quite what he expects at this time of the year.
Certainly he's never won Liège-Bastogne-Liège before, and he would very dearly love to do that. Maurizio Fondriest, riding for Cofidis, is a man who normally we would expect to ride well on conditions like this, but he's searching for his form at the moment and not having really the glory of days gone by.
Former world champion Fondriest. Michele Bartoli smiling and looking for a defence of the title, which he took last year. First Italian to win since Moreno Argentin back in 1991.
Bartoli also the winner of the World Cup last year and would like to get a few points today to drag himself up in that competition just a little bit higher. The leader at the moment, another Italian, Franco Ballerini, after his great win last weekend in Paris-Roubaix.
Ballerini here, I think, because he won Paris-Roubaix and because he leads. There's Frank van den Broek waving to the crowd, got the first cheers out of them as well. He's a hot favourite now. He's developing this year for sure, especially after his victory in Ghent-Wevelgem and before that in Paris-Nice. And really, he really did make something out of Flèche Wallonne by coming away for that second place. Here for us, Paul, one of the heroes of Flèche Wallonne, Michael Bogert, the champion of the Netherlands.
Great ride by him, very aggressive, and I think a lot stronger than Laurent Jalabert. Laurent Dufaux, on the other hand, not regarded as a one-day man, but he's got excellent form at the moment, but always willing to talk to the press, Rolf Sorensen.
Winner in 1993. And Rolf Sorensen, always a safe bet to win at something big every season. And the champion of the Olympic Games in Atlanta, Pascal Richard, slowly coming back to form after a series of injuries and operations, and now beginning to, well, he hopes what will be a full season for him on the triumphant Casino team. 25 victories so far Casino have had this season.
Well, it's great to see on the start line of Liège-Bastogne-Liège this year, Phil, that the sun has come down, because in recent years it's been terrible weather for Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but I don't think we're going to see the snows of recent years.
Jean-Marie Leblanc, the director of the Tour de France, the Society of the Tour de France, also now the organisers of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. The riders are away. That was the scene this morning in the sun. We're now going to pick up the action out on the course with a little more than 90 kilometres to go. And these are the pictures of a breakaway which formed at around about 37 kilometres at the town of Trou-de-Bras, and we're still clear now as they are 95 kilometres from the finish. We have made the turn down at Bastogne, and as everybody knows with this great classic, all the hard bits come after you leave Bastogne.
Certainly is. These riders now will be looking at the Côte de Stocker on the horizon. A very difficult climb indeed, and that is what they will expect, because now we're coming into a part of Liège-Bastogne-Liège where the climbs come on a very repetitive nature. After the climb of Stocker, they drop back down into the same town of Stavelot that they started it from, and then head out to the Côte de Haute-Levée and a very long stretch of road out towards the motor racing circuit of Francorchamps.
Just over 170 kilometres covered by these riders now, as we take a look here at a very famous name in the years gone by, Gianni Bugno. Will he or won't he ride in the upcoming Tour of Italy? And Bugno, we're never sure whether he's having a quiet season before announcing retirement or whether he wants just one more big year. Former double world champion, former double winner of the Tour de France stage at Alpe d'Huez as well.
trying to leap off the front of the lead group. In fact, here is Stuart O'Grady, the Australian rider, realising that if he can get to the foot of Stocker with a slight advantage, he can pick his way through the town, which is in fact a very tricky approach. And in the main field, a lot of work has been done by the Mapei squad over the last few kilometres as they come over the top of the Côte d'Azemont and then drop down into the Trois Ponts town.
The town of Trois Ponts, it's a really delightful little town, as are all these Ardennes villages and towns around here. It's perfect cycling countryside. Well, Stuart O'Grady said he wouldn't get in an early break today. He was going to try and have an easier ride at the start. So what did he do? He was in the breakaway after the first 20-odd miles or so.
I think it's just bigger than him. Once he sees a group of riders going up the road, he feels that he has to go with it, and he just likes to ride an aggressive bike race. But a couple of years' time, he's going to have to calm himself down just a little bit and make sure that when he does go into these moves, they're a lot closer to the finish. Good to see as well Kevin Livingston getting into that early breakaway, and Jonathan Vorders, who rides for the US Postal Service.
2 US flags on the board there. Michael Anderson is the Swedish rider, former winner of the Tour of South Africa and the Tour of the Cape. Rider 163 there is Simone Borghese from the Mercatoni Uno team.
And the panic coming into this squad because of the fact that Stuart O'Grady has nicked off the front there. You can just see him going around the corner with a white Gann jersey on his shoulders. And the man that has been sent up here for Laurent Jalabert is Mikel Zarabaitia, returning really to the top level of the sport after, for him, what was a very difficult back operation a couple of years ago, riding for the Banesto squad. And as always, the casino man out looking to make sure they're represented in all of these breakaways, Rolf Yearman.
Yearman looking pretty sharp, as all the casino boys seem to be at the moment. They're going to be well boosted by the victory the other day of Bo Hamburger in the Flèche Wallonne. 1 minute 45 back to the main field now for this group. Borghese just tacked in on the back. Stuart O'Grady in the distance there. We're heading now towards Trois Ponts and on then down to Stavelot. And Stuart O'Grady clearly deciding he wanted to break up the leading group and see if anybody was strong enough to come and join him. He's certainly putting down a big challenge with some 90+ kilometres still to ride.
It was funny talking to these two riders last night. I stayed in the same hotel as the Gann team, and O'Grady and Henk Vogels came down and said, you know, this is not our kind of race, but we've not done it before, so we thought we'd just see how we could handle it.
Well, sooner or later, Vogels or O'Grady were going to commentate as a big winner, because they do keep trying. There's no doubt they have the talent.
Certainly too. This man not scared at all, having been at the head of the race since the 37th kilometre. And we head down to Stocker, which is in fact after 175 kilometres covered, and O'Grady still trying to get away on his own before he comes down into Stocker. And at the top of that climb, a very wonderful monument to the victories of Eddy Merckx, the greatest cyclist in the world. Back in the main field, obviously the word has gone out from the Mapei riders to try and pull it all together, with Bugno on the front here. A little bit further back, Nico Matin, the very good friend and teammate of Frank van den Broek. So obviously the word has gone out in the Mapei squad today that the man for the day is going to be Frank van den Broek. And very sad news coming to us at the start this morning about Johan Museo, who had that bad crash last week in Paris-Roubaix. In fact, he has been taken into intensive care at the hospital in Ghent because the injury to his knee, in fact, has become very infected. So we hope that he recovers from that and comes back to the great form that he's had over the past few weeks.
Short descent and now 1 kilometre climb here up the Côte de Stocker. 22% the climb. He goes up to 130 metres and it's exactly a kilometre wrong.
Doesn't seem like it's an awful lot, the fact that it only goes up 200 metres, but the repetitive nature of all of these climbs down here in the Ardennes makes this really one of the toughest classics.
And you see you have that dead right-hand turn as well. You can't exactly charge up this hill. You start from scratch again.
Just on the front there, the casino rider Rolf Yearman starting to set the pace. The Asics CGA rider there is Alexander Scheffer from Kazakhstan. And these men now at the moment really just starting to survive, because that group behind at one time more than 5 minutes and 50 seconds advantage is crumbling quite dramatically now, and it's well within 1.5 minutes. So with another climb coming up shortly after this, the climb of Haute-Levée, we could well see the whole advantage of this group of riders being wiped out in the space of around about 10 kilometres.
Well, these riders just in a little steady tempo. Nobody really pushing the pace. They're not really worried too much about Stuart O'Grady out in front.
In fact, a big recovery by the main field there. Stefano Zanini on the front here for Mapei. Now, he has brought Vandenbroek into an ideal position at the foot of the Côte de Stocker. Vandenbroek there in second position must be very happy with the work that his teammates have done for him so far, because this is the best place to be. It's a very narrow climb and a fast descent off the top of this mountain.
And a lot of riders now forcing the way through here. Zanini fell on his face in the forest in the Paris-Roubaix event when he was World Cup leader, and he saw the jersey pass over to his teammate Ballerini. Well, clearly no long-lasting effects of that right on the front of the chase back. And this group now is massing a little bit to try and sweep up that leading group. They won't know exactly how many are still in front of them because they've been away for so long, and they may not yet realise Stuart O'Grady. In fact, O'Grady isn't in front now. There he is on the right of our picture, so he's been picked up. You can see this climb. It really is a nasty little climb. And they have the randonnée over the same course here around April every year, which starts down in Tilth and then covers the same route. And this really spreads out the tourists as well.
Well, that must be why Stuart O'Grady wanted to get a little bit of a lead before the climb of Stocker there, just so that he could lose 10 or 15 seconds on the slopes of the hill. Looking back now into the town of Stavelot, you get a chance to see just how rapidly this climb goes uphill. And there was O'Grady just disappearing out of the back of the group.
There's a few riders cracking the legs now. Bladsden of the team Deutsche Telekom, he's also gone to the back. This very narrow road, you see, you try and lock on the front and keep the pressure on, and everybody else just grovels now as they continue the climb. Once over the top of Stocker, they've got a short run through the woods, and then they start the climb of the Côte de Haute-Levée, which is another little bit of a brute, and then they keep coming at them thick and fast. These roads are very heavy roads to ride, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and this is one of the classics everybody really does want to win.
Certainly does. It's great to see Laurent Dufaux there on the left-hand side, the Festina rider, who this year I think is riding some excellent one-day races, and it bodes well for the performance of Festina later on in the year when we go to the Tour de France, because with Alex Zuller, Laurent Dufaux and Richard Virenque, I think they're going to put the Deutsche Telekom team into a lot of difficulty. The front group now, and at the back of it, the big figure of Michael Anderson wearing number 92. And in front of him is Kevin Livingston, the Cofidis rider, who for the first time really at the front of any of these big races this year.
Kevin, for my money, the better climber of the two there. Anderson will not be happy on these climbs. He's a pretty good time trialist, but he won't like the climbs at all. Michael Anderson slipping back from that lead group, I think, now. Dufaux, sorry, Paul.
Frank Vandenbroek comfortable on the right-hand side, and Udo Bolts, the man who was very aggressive 2 or 3 days ago in the Flèche Wallonne on the pink jersey, just on the left-hand side of the picture.
These guys doing just enough now. The strong men holding the front half of the peloton, which if we could see a shot from the helicopter right now, oh, there we are. I was going to say, I think you'll find it's starting to spread out down this climb over the 1,000 metres as the Mapei team are massing in strength at the front here. They have a lot of confidence in Vandenbroek, because along with probably Ballerini and Zanini, they are the top names on the squad in this particular race. No Museo, of course, but this isn't the sort of race Museo has excelled in the past. Sharp left-hand bend as they come away from the first climb. And the massive peloton has come up that climb too.
In fact, it's quite strange to see at this stage of Liège-Bastogne-Liège such a large group together. We're rejoining here Stuart O'Grady, and I wonder if he's off the front again or off the back at the moment, because a little bit of confusion. I think the rest of the group is probably still in front of O'Grady, but if the motorbike camera is here, he may well have recovered enough to catch them up and go off the front again.
Well, he's certainly on his own, that's for sure. As he now nips down through the trees. Good thing about this course is you can be quickly out of sight of any pursuers, because the nature of the course is it changes direction so much as it makes its way up back towards the finish of Ans.
Still the remnants of the chasing the lead group that went out very early on in the race this afternoon, and in the streets of Stavelot now they know that the main field has very rapidly closed down on them. There you can see just at the back of the group Kevin Livingston on the right-hand side there, Michael Anderson. But news coming to us that in fact the main field is less than 30 seconds behind.
And still Michael Anderson there finding the pace. I think Michael just crashed.